Picture this. The year is 41 BC, and the sultry air of Tarsus hangs heavy with anticipation. Mark Antony, one of the three powerful triumvirs ruling the Roman world, has summoned Cleopatra, the enigmatic queen of Egypt, to answer for her alleged disloyalty. He expects a cowering vassal, but what arrives on the Cydnus River is a spectacle designed to overwhelm. Cleopatra's barge, adorned with gilded stern and purple sails, glides effortlessly, propelled by silver oars keeping time with flutes and lyres. On board, she reclines under a canopy of gold-embroidered cloth, dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Young boys, costumed as cupids, fan her, while handmaidens, dressed as nereids and graces, attend to her every whim. Antony, initially indignant, finds himself utterly captivated. He watches from the shore, his hardened soldier's heart unexpectedly stirred by this brazen display of power and allure. The city of Tarsus empties its streets, everyone drawn to witness this extraordinary arrival. This isn't just a meeting. It's a carefully orchestrated seduction, a political maneuver cloaked in divine spectacle, and it will irrevocably alter the course of both their lives and the Roman Republic. The winter of 41 to 40 BC saw Mark Antony abandoning his duties as a Roman triumvir and succumbing entirely to the exotic allure of Alexandria and its queen. He became a fixture at Cleopatra's court, a willing participant in her lavish lifestyle. Forget the austere discipline of a Roman general. Antony embraced Egyptian customs, donning local attire and joining Cleopatra in her nightly escapades through the city, often disguised as commoners. They formed a playful drinking society known as the Inimitable Livers, engaging in extravagant banquets and revelries that scandalized Rome. While Antony's lieutenants desperately sent pleas for him to return to his responsibilities, he remained enthralled, seemingly forgetting the political machinations that threatened his power back home. Cleopatra, for her part, skillfully nurtured his affections, understanding that her kingdom's survival depended on this powerful alliance. She showered him with gifts, intellectual stimulation, and a sense of belonging he rarely found in the cutthroat world of Roman politics. This period marked the deepening of their bond, transforming a political alliance into a passionate affair, much to the dismay of Antony's Roman peers. Years later, their relationship reached its political zenith and, simultaneously, its point of no return with the Alexandrian donations in 34 BC. In a public ceremony in Alexandria, Mark Antony, dressed as the god Dionysus, and Cleopatra, as Isis, sat on golden thrones before a vast crowd. There, Antony declared Cleopatra's son, Caesarion, believed to be Julius Caesar's son, the king of kings and co-ruler with Cleopatra. He then divided vast swathes of Roman-controlled territory in the east among their children, granting them kingdoms and titles as if they were his own to bestow. This audacious act was a direct challenge to Rome's authority and to Octavian, Antony's rival and fellow triumvir. For the Roman Senate, it was an unforgivable affront, a blatant disregard for Roman law and tradition. Antony was seen as having gone native, abandoning his Roman identity for an Egyptian queen. This public declaration solidified the image of Antony as a puppet of Cleopatra, fueling Octavian's propaganda machine and laying the groundwork for the inevitable civil war. The donations were a grand, theatrical statement of their shared power, but also a colossal miscalculation that would ultimately lead to their downfall. The climactic moment of their story arrived with the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. This wasn't just a naval engagement. It was a clash of empires, ideologies, and personal destinies. Octavian's forces, led by the brilliant general Agrippa, cornered Antony and Cleopatra's combined fleet in the Ambracian Gulf. Despite having a numerically superior fleet, Antony's ships were slower and less maneuverable. During the fierce battle, when the tide began to turn against them, Cleopatra, with her squadron of 60 ships, unexpectedly broke through the Roman lines and fled the scene. Antony, in a moment of desperate devotion or perhaps profound despair, abandoned his struggling fleet and followed her. This act was seen as the ultimate betrayal by his own men, a clear indication that his loyalty lay with Cleopatra, not Rome. The defeat at Actium was catastrophic for Antony, marking the end of his military might and essentially sealing his fate. The image of the great Roman general abandoning his troops for a woman became a powerful weapon in Octavian's propaganda, portraying Antony as weak and subservient. After Actium, Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Alexandria, their power crumbling around them. The city, once a vibrant hub of culture and intrigue, now held an air of impending doom. Octavian's legions were closing in, and their former allies began to desert them. Antony, once the confident general, descended into despair and paranoia, drinking heavily and suspecting treachery at every turn. Cleopatra, ever the pragmatist, tried to negotiate with Octavian, hoping to preserve her kingdom, even if it meant sacrificing Antony. However, Octavian was relentless, intent on a complete victory. As Roman forces breached Alexandria's defenses, Antony received a false report that Cleopatra had committed suicide. In a fit of grief and desperation, he fell on his own sword. Though mortally wounded, he was brought to Cleopatra, who had barricaded herself in her mausoleum. He died in her arms, a tragic end to a tumultuous life. The fall of Alexandria was not just the end of a city. It was the final act in a grand drama of love, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of power. With Antony dead, Cleopatra was captured by Octavian's forces. She was placed under guard, treated with a show of respect, but in reality, she was a prize of war, destined for Octavian's triumphal procession in Rome. Octavian intended to parade her through the streets as a testament to his victory, a symbol of Rome's triumph over Egypt and her audacious queen. Cleopatra, however, was determined to avoid such a humiliation. She understood the symbolic power of her image and refused to be reduced to a spectacle for Roman eyes. During her captivity, she was allowed certain privileges, including bathing and dressing in her own robes. She still exuded an undeniable charisma, even in defeat, as evidenced by the Roman officers who were still somewhat enchanted by her presence. Yet, beneath the calm facade, Cleopatra was plotting her escape, not from her captors, but from the indignity of being paraded as a defeated queen. She knew her destiny, and she would choose her own end. The precise details of Cleopatra's death remain shrouded in a mix of historical accounts and legend, but the prevailing narrative speaks of a dramatic and deliberate suicide. Knowing she was to be paraded in Rome, she requested to visit Antony's tomb, a final act of remembrance. Upon her return, she instructed her loyal handmaidens to bring her a basket of figs, within which, it is believed, an Egyptian cobra, was hidden. Alone in her chambers, she pressed the venomous snake to her breast, choosing a death that was swift, regal, and symbolic of her divine status. The asp was considered a sacred creature in Egypt, associated with royalty and divine judgment. Her suicide was not an act of despair, but a final, defiant assertion of control in a life that had been dominated by political maneuvering and power struggles. She refused to be a trophy, turning her demise into an act of enduring legend, forever cementing her place as a queen who chose her own destiny. The absence of Cleopatra from his triumphal procession was a significant blow to Octavian's public spectacle, but he compensated by parading a massive effigy of her, complete with the asp clinging to her arm, symbolizing her self-inflicted end. The triumph itself, held in 29 BC, was a grand and ostentatious display of Roman might and Octavian's absolute victory. For 3 days, Rome witnessed a procession of captured treasures, exotic animals, and defeated enemies. Octavian, riding in his chariot, was adorned with the laurel wreath of a victor, hailed by adoring crowds. The wealth plundered from Egypt poured into Rome, financing ambitious building projects and solidifying Octavian's position as the undisputed ruler of the Roman world. The defeat of Antony and Cleopatra allowed Octavian to consolidate power, bringing an end to the tumultuous civil wars that had plagued Rome for decades. This triumph marked not just a personal victory for Octavian, but the definitive end of the Roman Republic and the dawn of the Roman Empire, with Octavian, soon to be Augustus, at its helm. The story of Antony and Cleopatra became a timeless tale, shaping the perception of both individuals for centuries. In Roman narratives, Antony was often portrayed as a weak-willed Roman general, corrupted by the seductive wiles of an exotic queen. Cleopatra, conversely, was depicted as a dangerous temptress, a foreign sorceress who led a noble Roman to his ruin. These portrayals, heavily influenced by Octavian's propaganda, served to justify the civil war and the annexation of Egypt. However, their story has also been reinterpreted across different eras, evolving into a romantic tragedy, a testament to passionate love against all odds. Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra immortalized their affair, focusing on the grandeur of their love and the fatal flaws that brought about their demise. Their shared tomb, though never precisely located, became a symbol of their enduring, if ill-fated, union. The sheer drama of their lives, their immense power, and their spectacular downfall ensured their story would continue to fascinate and inspire artists, writers, and historians for millennia. The demise of Antony and Cleopatra marked a pivotal turning point in ancient history, the definitive end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. Octavian's victory ushered in an unprecedented era of peace and stability known as the Pax Romana, lasting for over 2 centuries. The vast wealth of Egypt, once Cleopatra's personal treasury, now flowed into Rome, funding monumental public works, a professional army, and a burgeoning bureaucracy. Octavian, consolidating all power under his control, adopted the title of Augustus, becoming the first Roman emperor. The traditional Roman values of republicanism and senatorial authority gradually eroded, replaced by an imperial system centered on the emperor. The story of Antony and Cleopatra, therefore, is more than just a personal tragedy. It is the final, dramatic chapter of a long civil war that transformed the political landscape of the entire Mediterranean world, laying the foundation for an empire that would dominate for centuries to come.